What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to build an awesome 1440p gaming PC build, a system that comprises of parts that you can actually buy right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you should do with some of the more expensive components in the current climate, a system that's going to be packed with power without wasting money in unnecessary areas, and deliver fantastic gaming performance across the latest AAA titles. A build primarily focused around 1440p, but one that I'm keen to test at 4K too, to see if this thing could really hold up at that top res as well. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. The Corsair Nautilus cooler lineup is here, with a range of great designs to choose from. Whether you're after a 240mm or 360mm cooler, or a cooler with or without RGB fans, Corsair has you covered. The fans are daisy-chained for universal fan and ARGB control, meaning there's no need to download any proprietary software to control the cooler, and the new LCD models let you monitor key system metrics too. So why not keep your chip cool and learn more about the Nautilus range at the first links in the description below. Let's begin today's build by talking about the CPU and GPU combo that I've picked up. And what better place to start than this, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X. You guys have seen me feature this CPU on the channel literally loads of times. It's got 6 cores, 12 threads, great clock speeds, fantastic single-threaded performance. And if you're building a gaming PC that costs probably up to about $2,000 or £2,000, this is likely all you actually need. I'm going to be pairing it up with the graphics card that I've selected for today's build, the AMD RX 9070. The RX 9070 is currently AMD's mid-range GPU offering, more powerful than their entry-level 9060 XT, and significantly cheaper than their more high-end RX 9070 XT. When AMD launched the 9070 series, which feels like probably a year ago now, the 9070 didn't get a great lot of loving. The reason being the 9070 XT is a lot faster, and at launch cost very little more money. Naturally, as things have evened out over time, the price gap between the two cards has widened, and that now makes the lower price of the 9070 a worthy pickup. If you're a Team Green Nvidia fan and you want to swap this out for an Nvidia GPU, the 5070 provides virtually identical performance, but you do lose 4GB of video memory. In terms of gaming performance, these two parts are a powerhouse at 1440p, but I would say at 4K you might be surprised at some of the frame rates you can get, and I will be taking a look at a little bit later. Now, I've spoken about video memory. What about normal memory? And this is where things, unfortunately, in the current climate, get rather messy. You're gonna want 32GB of DDR5. And previously, I would have said you need 6,000 megatransfers, you need a CAS latency of 30. But in the current climate, that's completely unrealistic. I've made a video talking about the memory crisis, what's happening, why it's happening. You can check that out in the cards now. The long and short of it is memory is expensive. And as much as that's really crap, it's not gonna change anytime soon, or at least we don't think it will. With that being said, this Corsair kit makes for a great option in today's system. If you're looking to build a new PC, if you've already got some DDR5 memory, I'd stick with that for now. If you're building a new system, you will have to shop around, and you will have to be flexible with what kits that you're willing to choose. This Corsair kit's very representative of what I would typically use, but not necessarily what you'll be able to find. I'll link latest part pricing and availability down in the description below. Now, I do actually have some good news. Hang on a minute, James, we're talking about memory and we've got good news. The SSD. Now, I've gone for the Teamgroup MP44L, one of my favorite drives, really quick, really good value for money. Okay, this sounds good. And price-wise at the moment, as of filming today's video, which is currently the 6th of January, you can pick one of these up on Newegg for just over $90 for the 1TB capacity. Now, yes, you may say, James, I looked 6 months ago and they were 65, and you would be right. But the price increases on these have slowed down, if not reneged a little bit, and I actually think sub $100 for what you get in the current climate is a good deal. What should we talk about next? I feel like we need one of those like random generators. Let's do the cooler. Now let's do this because this is a part in today's build that I've picked that you could probably save some money on. So let's talk about that. Now, those of you that have watched the channel for a little while will know I'm a big fan of a liquid cooler. Even on a chip like the Ryzen 5 9600X, which doesn't emit really that much heat, I think that they're a great addition to any build. This Montech Hyperflow in the UK, I saw it on offer on Scam for like £65 a couple of weeks ago. That's the equivalent of about $80. And for that, you get an a lot of cooler. The main reason I've gone for it though is that we get 3 additional ARGB fans, which will fill the top of the case choice I've gone for today, and I think it will just look really nice in the system. If you're desperate to save some cash, you could go for an air cooler. Montech have got some options. You could look at the Vetru V5, Thermalright Peerless Assassin. They're all great choices. But in today's build, I wanted to maximize the airflow in the case and help with the aesthetics, and figured that what I would regard as a fairly budget-oriented 360mm cooler was a good way to achieve that. Now, the importance of actually going for the cooler from both an aesthetics and a cooling point of view in today's build will become clear when I open up this, the case that I have elected to go for. Because this right here is Montech's brand new King 45 Pro. Packaging material could maybe do with some work. Okay, so this is one of Montech's brand new cases, and it looks pretty interesting straight off the bat. So we've got a big tempered glass side panel here, which is always a nice addition. And what they've done is taken the power supply off the bottom and instead added in these 3 120mm fans, which are actually slightly angular, which is going to help direct airflow, and move the power supply to the side at the front. They've done that while still retaining the nice sort of tempered glass look and feel that we like, and with similar design language and cues to the King 95 Pro, which has got that curved panel on it as well. Spinning the case around to the rear, it's pretty compact. We've got a huge airflow cutout, as all the airflow for those front fans is, well, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to come from the back. And then removing that panel, oh, look at this. It's looking good so far. We've got an integrated ARGB and fan hub, which is angled at the top, so it's easy to plug into. Clever. Room for the power supply down this side. And I was going to say, oh, it is on a hinge. And then a door, which we can use to hide the cable management, but also mount drives to. And one thumb screw opens that up. And let me guess, does it come off? Sometimes these kind of doors slide up and off. Yes, it does. Oh, this gets better. And at the back, you can see we've got all of our front panel cables, USB 3, USB-C, HD audio, etc. And all the fans are pre-wired to the fan hub. And the cable management is not perfect, but it's really not too far off for an inbuilt hub. So that's great to see. It looks as well like this also has reverse connect motherboard support. So if you are going to go for one of the new fancy motherboards with the connectors on the back, you can do that. There looks to be enough clearance at the rear to install one of those as well, which is great. I'm not going to go for a reverse connect motherboard today though. Instead, I'm going to go for one of our favorites at GeekaPC. And those of you that don't know, GeekaPC is my UK pre-building company where we sell gaming PCs just like those featured on the channel. It's only in the UK for now, so sorry to my international viewers, but this is a board that I've used loads in loads and loads of GeekaPC systems, of which the hope is to make today's build one. So you can buy the parts in the description below, or you can buy it pre-built from us, which is pretty exciting. Now, specifically, this is Gigabyte's B850 Eagle Wi-Fi 6E. Unlike what the ASRock socket cover might suggest, you wouldn't believe how many of these socket covers I lose. I lose them all the time. This one is identifying as an ASRock motherboard for today, which is fine, I suppose. Fundamentally, the main thing with this motherboard that's important is that it's got good Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in, PCI Gen 5 support, and a decent I/O with good USB-C connectivity. It's also cheap, which really helps in a build like this one. I'm going to pop in the Ryzen 5 9600X into our Eagle motherboard. You guys, I'm sure, have seen this a million times, but if not, line it up, make sure the little triangle here corresponds to triangle on the socket cover and the little triangle on the motherboard socket. AMD, you're normally pointing towards the CPU power in the top left. Drop the socket cover down and then latch the armor on top nice and easily. I'm then going to follow up with the memory, which I'll be installing into the 2nd and 4th RAM DIMM slots in today's system, and then finish things off by removing the toolless M.2 heatsink to pop in the MP44L. Kind of do this at a 45-degree angle, get it slid in, drop it down, and then finish things off by adding the cover into place. Now, this is the Gen 5 slot, so if you've got a Gen 5 drive, make sure you put it in this slot, and any Gen 4 drives, put them in below. Now, at the back of the case, you'll also find an included accessory kit, which Montech have actually helpfully labelled and sorted with all the bits we might need. Cable ties, motherboard standoffs, and then they've got PSU and GPU screws, motherboard and hard drive screws, and then SSD screws. So we want the motherboard and hard drive screws. And I'm going to use those to actually install the B850 Eagle into the case. This is an ATX board. The standoffs are already configured for ATX boards, and that means sliding it in is a very, very easy task. Just get it lined up. The integrated I/O shield that we see on basically all motherboards nowadays makes life a little easier, and the center standoff is raised, which will hold the board into place, at least for now. 9 screws in total, so you've got 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom to get this secured into place. And to do this, I'll of course be using my handy LTT screwdriver. Not an ad, they sent it over and I really rather like it. The next stage is kind of up to you really what you do next. If you're following this as a tutorial, I think I'm going to do the power supply, because installing this is going to make life a little bit easier. I would like to do the cooler, but I'm worried the cooler going in is going to make accessing some of these power ports a bit harder. It also gives me a good chance to talk about the power supply in today's build, which I've realized on my overhead camera you can't see. There we go. See, I'm breaking the fourth wall there. This is the RM750e from Corsair. It's got 750 watts of wattage. Would you believe it? It's got integrated or included or pre-braided these cables. Anyway, what I'm saying is it's got very nice cables. They're not completely braided in the same way a PSU cable extension would be braided. That I can demonstrate by grabbing an actual braided extension cable. You can see the braiding on a braided cable is thicker and has like more of a nylon weave. This is more of a plastic, but it still looks really, really good. And it's going to save you loads of money versus having to buy nice fancy cables. I'm going to install cables for the graphics cards. That's our PCI connections. For the motherboard, which is a big, large motherboard cable, and then the CPU 8 pins or 4+4 pins, and then screw the power supply into its rather unique location at the rear of the case. I should also say as well, remember to turn the power supply on before you then put the top cover lid. That's a very common mistake people make when putting power supplies in. They actually forget to put the switch on before the lid. You get the gist. Once the power supply's in, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to wire up the motherboard first. There's a nice little handy grommet just here. Then the CPU to the top left. GPU cables I can worry about later. Front panel is also worth doing now. That includes the JFP1 front panel to the bottom right, our HD audio to the bottom left, and then the two USB 3 ports, Type A and Type C, which are on the bottom right and the middle right of this B850 Eagle from Gigabyte. The next stage is the CPU cooler, and as you can see, Montech actually pre-installed the fans on the Hyperflow for us to make life easy. And if I hover it in the case, I love the word hover, it's such a great word. Hover it in, you can see how it's going to install. Can you see that, or are my arms in the way? You can it's been a weird. Use your imagination. Radiator at the top, then the pump. The screws and stuff that I need are included in the case box. So that's rather nice. And that's going to go, as I say, at the top of the case. The CPU block is then going to go on top of the processor, a little something like that. Now, I'm going to pop the thermal paste on, of course, as well. They are thumb screws, but I'd recommend you tighten them with a screwdriver to get that contact with the CPU even, but firm. I'm then going to run this 4-pin cable, which is for the pump on the CPU cooler, up to the CPU opt cable on the motherboard. What I've also done is I've pulled through the 6+2-pin PCI power cables through nice and ready. Bit of a controversial opinion this that some of you won't agree with. I really wish AMD would just move to PCI Gen 5 or 12-volt high power, whatever you want to call it, because goodness me, these are ugly, and the NVIDIA, it's not the NVIDIA connection, but the connection that you'll find on the NVIDIA GPUs is just better, okay? Now it's not catching on fire, it's better. Now, graphics card, final part of the build. Oh yeah, oh, this looks nice. This is the Gigabyte RX 9070. We sell loads of these over on Geeka PC, a wide range of models, including this particular Gigabyte card. This is gonna look really, really good though. I mean, just hovering that into place, that's a well-proportioned gaming PC build. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the correct PCI layer. I can't even get the cover off. Come on, there we go. PCI lanes, it's gonna be the first and the second. It's right the top slot on this particular Gigabyte motherboard. And then, once the GPU's ready to go, push back the PCI latch, or push back the little button. There we are. Slide the card into place. Oh yeah. Bit of pressure. Beautiful. And then I'm gonna secure the graphics card down with the screws that I just take. Can you tell I'm excited? I can't even finish a sentence. This is amazing. It just looks really, really nice. I'm really, really happy with this so far. Close that cover at the rear, get that screwed in, and then there's just a couple of power cables left to go. Oh yes, there's one and two. Oh ho 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 ho. Now that looks pretty good. All that's left to do is find out how this thing actually performs, but first time for a stunning GeekaWhat montage of this thing all powered on and looking pretty. You can use your imagination. Looking pretty good. Now, I've had some mixed feedback on this case here in the office. Some people like the power supply being mounted at the front, some people don't quite so much. I'm a big fan of the fans at the bottom. I think the angle on these is really nice, and I like the way the RGB's been done on these fans too, with RGB around the perimeter of the fan, but also within the central hub, which lights those fan blades up too. A bit different to what we've seen previously on the King 95 Pro as an example. Now, in terms of performance, I said earlier that I wanted to test this build at 1440p and 4K. And to do that, I've picked up this. It's Yamaha's Red Eagle G-Master GB3261UH-SCP. Now, it's a 4K monitor with a 144Hz refresh rate. Yamaha's Red Eagle line is sort of their more entry-level option, so that's going to provide a bit of an entry, as I say, into 4K gaming, and is perfect for the benchmarking I want to do today. I tested all of the games at 1440p and 4K, and aside from the resolution, the settings remain pretty much identical throughout. Now, starting off with Marvel's Rivals at 1440p, and I'm glad to report a frame rate of over 100 frames per second, with an average of 108.8. Now, this was a pretty strong result, giving us a competitive level at 1440p. 4K obviously saw a reduction in frame rate down to just over 70 frames per second on average, which still provided a playable gaming experience, but perhaps not one that's going to set the world on fire. Marvel's Rivals, a game you'd probably play at the low res, as the frame rate here is arguably more important. Moving through into Arc Raiders next, and let's start at 1440p high to begin with. Here the build really did very well, an average of 121 frames per second, which is not bad considering both how intensive this game is to run and of course how new it is as a title, while tuning up to 4K did see a drop in frame rate, here down to an average of around about 85 frames per second. 85 is a more playable level than the 70 or so that we saw in the previous Marvel's Rivals at 4K, and does show you that if you want the extra visual fidelity of 4K, that you can get a pretty decent experience from this build. Moving through to Battlefield 6 next, and this is a game where I was really hopeful that the 4K results would stack up well, because in my opinion, this is a game that has visuals so strong that I would actually take the higher res over the lower frame rate. Don't shoot me in the comments for that. Now, in terms of frame rate performance, I was really impressed, because at 1440p I saw a really strong 130 frames per second, while tuning up to 4K does drop down to 88. Now, you can see here in a side-by-side of the 1440 and 4K results that obviously we've got a lot of differences in the scene. It's hard to replicate the same benchmark run in Battlefield 6 on a one-to-one basis, but you can hopefully see that at 4K the graphics just overall look better. Now, ultimately, this system gives you the flexibility of both, and I would go as far as to say the 4K frame rate was actually more than manageable. Finally, in F1 2025, 1440p and 4K delivered fantastic results. 1440p, the frame rate skyrocketed to over 200 frames per second on average, while even that top-end 4K resolution still saw more than 120 FPS, more than enough for a racing simulation title like this. Again, I think the visual improvement at 4K really can make a massive difference, and it's great to see this system have the option at both of those resolutions. Would you ever game at 4K on this build, or is it for you firmly a 1440p machine? Let me know in the comments down below. You can find latest pricing and availability for all the parts as well in the description, should you want to check them out, and you can even buy this PC as a pre-built from GeekaPC, which I'll link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.